Ladies and gentlemen, can I say good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to St Andrew's Church here in Farnham. It's really lovely to welcome you to the second of our two Heritage Open Days. My name is David, I'm the Rector of Farnham and I lead the team here at St Andrew's, and it's my great joy and pleasure to be your host this afternoon. Particular welcome to the group of architects who've been with us for a good part of the day from different parts of the country. You've been especially welcome. I hope you've had a good time and been able to do what you need to do, as well as look at our particular situation here in the town and in and around the church. Various things to say about this afternoon. We've got tours around the building. Please do have a little wander if you'd like. You can see the Pugin windows, the big East End window behind me. You can see the Vinegar Bible, which is a fairly unique piece of literature. That's over in the Lady Chapel. That's to my left, to your right. We'll be running tower tours as soon as we have come to the next part of our afternoon, and you just need to sign up for that and we'll make sure you get up safely and even better get down again. One of the great joys of working here and being here for 9 years is being able to use the pavilions, which is like a church hall within a church building. And it's my great joy and pleasure this afternoon to introduce now for the second time our friend Philip. Philip German is part of the family firm that designed and created this extraordinary piece of architecture, and I hope he'll be able to explain a little bit about what it was like working on the project, and we can certainly contest that it's been a fantastic resource for us. So I will hand over without any more ado. Will you please give a very big St Andrews welcome to Philip German.
Thank you ever so much. Can you hear me? Yes. So I was a builder and I had the great honour of doing all this lovely work in this wonderful church. My family have been builders in Peterborough in the middle of the last century, and my great-grandfather moved to Farnham in the 1850s. I know this because I had a call from an irate lady one day saying that her drains were blocked, and it must be my fault because my name was on her drain cover, which was 100 years old. So the firm I was part of was F.W. German & Sons, founded by Frank, my dad, and then run by my elder brother Tim, Linda, my wife, and me. We had a great team of craftsmen working for us. There are family links to St Andrews going back over 100 years. Does this work? I think I must be pressing the wrong button. It turned on. Help. I'm waiting for my assistant to come down. Anyway, so what I was going to show you was a lovely picture of my father's birth certificate from 1914, when he was baptised here. And in 1939, he married my mother here. Quite recently, my two nieces have got married here. So we've had lots of connections. So there's a man that knows what to do who's just going to come along and sort this out. It died. No. Oh, I know. It's because you've got something else. There we are. Press the clicker again. There we go. So this is the standard birth certificate, baptismal certificate. And quite interestingly, I don't know if you know Farnham, you can see there's the church. You see my thing, and then these cottages are now shops. Things move on, and the pews in St James's Chapel here were made by my great uncle Alf, who was a teacher and also a very talented craftsman. And they deconsecrated St James's Church, and they all came here. So I trained as a chartered surveyor in London, and in 1981 I decided to join the family firm. When I joined, we were just general builders working locally on mainly domestic projects. But we started to get involved in old buildings and did a lot of work for the Farnham Trust. For Tanyard Cottage, there it is, we received We and architect Stebbin and Blower received the Times Conservation Award, and in 1996, just before 1998 I think it was, just before we started work here, we did the Victoria Gardens in Farnham, which is the old swimming pool. You can see they've got lovely Breeden gravel paths, which unfortunately have been replaced with asphalt, I noticed last week. With projects on Farnham Castle and some impressive country house work, we developed a reputation for heritage builders. My brother and I also like going down the pub. And so we got lots and lots of pub and hotel work. We worked for Friary Mukes and Gales of Horndean and Taylor Walker, travelling to pubs in London, Portsmouth and nearby areas. Our most notable project was the Old Bull and Bush, down at the Old Bull and Bush. That's the one in the song. The pub work required lots of bespoke joinery, and so we started a joinery shop in Black Nest between Alton and Farnham. With the ability to make complicated joinery and our general building capabilities, we started to get the odd church job. I think there must be a lot of similarities between churches and pubs. Tim and I noticed that we spent most of our 30s in pubs and most of our 40s and 50s in churches. A natural progression. One of the recurring jobs was installing toilets and the associated drainage, which most old churches were without. And surprisingly, ladies didn't like going behind gravestones as much as men did. Notably, we installed facilities in Holy Trinity Church at the top of Guildford High Street, and we built an impressive mahogany organ loft in St Giles Church in Reading for acclaimed architect Roderick Gradage. We carried out a major refurbishment at St Peter's Parish Church in Petersfield. This included toilets, a kitchen, a new floor, and extensive custom-built joinery. At the reopening, the bishop came to reconsecrate the church. The church was packed, and the bishop had to knock on the door, and I had to let him in. Unfortunately, he was wearing one of these, and he didn't understand the new technology. So we were all treated to the bishop saying, "Is my hat straight?" And the whole audience were very, very amused. St Peter's was closed for over a year and was well received. I think that probably has something to do with us getting this job. So our first involvement here was to install concrete padstones in the bell to enable the bell frame to be lowered. The swinging of the bells made the tower sway, and the lowering of the bells reduced the effect. There's the bell frame. I keep looking back there. You can see there's a lot of weight up there. We took out areas of internal stonework and put in design concrete pads. Surprisingly, the stones we took out were second-hand, and some of them had faces and carvings on the back. We think they were probably stolen from Westminster, from Waverley Abbey or somewhere like that, all second-hand. As well as this, as well as the repositioning, 2 tenor bells were added. The bell ringers installed the bell frames themselves, impressively completing the job without any professional assistance. If you go into the ringing chamber now, when the bells are ringing, it feels quite like you're at sea. You can feel the church, the whole tower swaying. Made me feel quite ill when I was up there. There's proof of our involvement. One of my graffiti-loving workmen. It wasn't me. The next involvement was moving the reredos. So the reredos, which is now over there, was here. And it divided the church completely in two, so you couldn't see through that into the top bit. So all the services were just in this half. And the first idea of the redevelopment was to take that out, so it gave the whole church open. So we picked it up, and we made the doors on the side, and extended the bottom, and put it over there. Works quite well, it fits quite well. And you can see there's lots of memorials on the wall there. We had to move those. And they're really, really heavy, but they didn't have any screws or raw plugs in those days. They just used bits of stone which were cemented into the back. We just had to lift the stones up and remove them. The reredos was designed by church architect David Nye in 1959. His practice still exists, and as a young QS, I work with it. It's a small world. Time passed, and we were invited to tender for the reordering works designed by the new architect in charge of the building, Ptolemy Dean. This is from his website. Ptolemy Dean Architects specialises in conservation work to historic buildings, additions to historic buildings, and the design of new buildings in sensitive locations. Ptolemy Dean will be known for some as a historic advisor on the BBC's 2 series Restoration. He serves on the National Trust Architectural Panel, the Salisbury Cathedral Fabric Advisory Committee, and from 2012 he became Surveyor of the Fabric at Westminster Abbey. A top bloke. Charisma and enthusiasm exuded from Ptolemy. His design was exciting and radical. He was also very polite and charming, which went down well with the parishioners and the builders. His design removed all the Victorian pews, which are all here, to give a broad, open area of flexible worship. The new pavilions at the back, built within the fabric of the building, touching the old building, but not requiring any demolition or alteration to this historic church. Inside the pavilions, a servery, a quiet room, and the balcony over gives extra seating and a special view of proceedings from within the church. New glazed doors to the porch at the west end, new glazed doors here and at the west end let in light. The new ramps make the space accessible to all mobility groups, and of course, a new toilet. It wasn't to everyone's taste. We did get occasional flack from visitors asking where the wonderful old pews went. Someone even called it a porter cabin. And someone else called it a shed, but I like to think, I don't think it's not one of those. I've heard the pavilion is a light ornamental building for players and distinguished guests. That's a much nicer explanation. I remember a packed church where Rector Andrew Tuck introduced Ptolemy to talk about the project. His vision and charm won the day. Before the Victorians changed the church interior, it would have had box pews. These may have had doors, roofs, or even an upstairs. The more important you were, the more impressive your pew. We found evidence over here of a stove in the floor and a flue going up through the roof for the comfort of some dignitary. Before the box pews, the main church area would have been open and flexible in its use, which is what we have now, full circle. Our tender was successful, and we started work on a rainy Monday in 2002. So we removed all the pews and the suspended timber floor. That's what it looked like in 1892. Sorry, I got it out there. And you can see the stone pulpit, the timber pulpit and the stone font in their original positions. They have now moved. But generally speaking, the church is very similar. Anyway, we removed all those pews and the suspended floor they're sitting on. We dug it out and concreted the floors, and we used concrete beams so we didn't disturb too much. Some of the pews were sold, and some were dismantled and used in oak flooring to the ramp and steps, and in the oak shelving around the church. None was wasted. So that's in the back. There's those cupboards are made out of pews. That's the other side. There's the ramp, the floorboards made out of pews, and the steps. So where you're walking, people have sat for years. Bookcases all made out of pews. And there's the pavilions. The walkways between the pews was York stone, and we extended this under the old pew area using second-hand York stone. These areas had been excavated by the Victorians, and disappointingly, we didn't find any treasure. We found a few tombs and some bones, which we respectfully reburied with a prayer from the rector. The York stone we used was second-hand, and I went up to Manchester, where lots of old stone from demolished mills was available to source it. We knew we had to choose carefully because we'd had a bad experience previously using second-hand York stone that had been used in wool mills. And when we built this orangery and we put this York stone down, and when they watered the oranges, it smelled of lamb chops. And they weren't very pleased. So we had to be very careful where the stone came from. I do seem to remember, there was one really big stone up there, which took about 6 of us to move it. There were some really big stones. We found evidence of the old 14th century tower, which was burnt down, which is actually here. And if you look, you can see we've marked with bricks the 4 corners of the old tower. So it went up there. And when we dug it up, we could see the ground was all orange from the fire. Where was I? The timber for the pavilions is pine from Northern Europe and Russia. Kara Sea, I remember, is Russia. I don't suppose we get that now. Where the colder temperatures make for slower growing and more durable timber. Unfortunately, the Russian timber, especially, would occasionally have rifle bullets in it, which played havoc with our joinery machines. I don't know why, whether they used them for target practice, I don't know. The glass doors are large and very heavy. Each door leaf has 4 substantial hinges and very big screws. And we didn't know they'd work until we hung the doors and added the safety glass. The glass balustrade is supported on powder-coated steel balusters. We had to make timber templates for the glass to make sure the holes in the right place. 20 years ago, the technology was quite new, but now it's quite common. When the sun shines in the morning and in the evening, you can see reflection. Can't show you, I don't know. Above the doors. So if you see here, the reflection of the glass in the doors is actually not the window above it, it's the window behind it. And it's the same there. Not quite so good there. We wonder whether Ptolemy designed that, or whether it was just luck. I don't know. We put the pavilion roof timbers on, and it was only when we came to wiring the lights we realised the joist spacing didn't suit the light spacing. So we had to take it all apart and start again. The balcony is designed for 50 people, but on Remembrance Day a few years ago, I think I had most of Farnham Scouts up there. Next came the task of painting the inside. It required a full scaffolding, which we did in bits. We had a full platform just under the wall plates. And the space above, when boarded out, it was like walking around in a massive village hall. Loads of space. I was up in the chancel ceiling, up here, with Ptolemy, and I suggested that to save money, perhaps we didn't have to paint the top bits that no one could see. And he said, "Philip, the Lord will see." So we painted it. If you know Ptolemy, that's very, very Ptolemy. We were surprised when he told us that the ceiling above us was going to be blue. We didn't know until we were just by the paint. We thought it was going to be white, but very effective, I think. And we had a wedding when all the scaffold was up, and we draped new tarpaulins. I had my wife in there cleaning, and we had to drape tarpaulins through the scaffold from the back door, from the doors there, and up here to the altar with lights. I don't know how effective it was, but I hope they had a lovely day. So we used two types of traditional wall paint inside. Lime wash for the outside, these walls here. It's like painting with water. You paint 3 or 4 coats and you don't see anything. And then all of a sudden, the colour starts coming through. The lime wash is basically lime suspended in water, and the lime carbonates and becomes part of the substrate. The good thing about it is that the damp comes out through it. The bad thing is it rubs off on you just on the Sunday suit. So we just did the outside. For the inside walls, these ones here, well, I can see the vicar's been sticking blue tack. They're done in distemper, which is basically lime wash with glue stuck in it, and that doesn't come off on your clothes. All the roof timbers were washed down and many spiders made homeless. We had to increase our painting crew, and my son George, now a head teacher, and a really nice West Indian man called Leroy did a lot of the lime washing. Leroy sang all day and was very good because he was very tall, so we saved money on scaffolding. So you can see around the outside of the church, these lozenge-shaped things. These are hatchments. And when a notable person died, they'd have a hatchment made and hung outside their house for a period, and then it would come and be hung in the church. So he took them all down, cleaned them off, and hung them up, rehung them. I don't know who they are. Apparently, the Germans called them the shields of the dead. That's Germans the people, not Germans the builders. The helmet on the wall over there is very uncomfortable. St. Andrew up here. I had to carry him on a very long ladder on my shoulder and put him up there. He is very heavy. I don't think I could do it now. One of the ongoing problems in the church is damp, so we dug a trench all the way around the outside of the church. Put a pipe in the bottom with some teram, which is a material, and big stones. So draining the bottom 600 millimetres of the walls. And I think in most places you can see that the damp has gone. I noticed there's a bit over here, but did quite well. The main porch on the north of the church, over here, had steps and a threshold, which kept the rainwater out. And we had to take the steps and the threshold out to make it wheelchair accessible. We put in 2 very, very big drains. And last week I said I hoped it kept the water out. I've since learned it didn't. That the church wardens have had to mop up twice. So that's 20 years, that's not bad. The water comes down the footpath from West Street in a torrent. So we only moved the ancient font over there once. It's got a drain which goes just into the foundation, so the holy water just ekes out underneath the stones. However, the pulpit over there, we moved 3 times, and it's very, very heavy. It only fits on one side of the column. It could go there, here, or here. And we were pushing it back, and this vicar was standing back and saying, I don't know which. Anyway, it ended up there. I've never seen anyone preaching it, but it's a lovely piece of furniture. Nearing completion, it came time to paint St James's Chapel ceiling. That's the chapel over here, and we found it was seriously rotten. The whole ceiling was taken down and replaced. We salvaged what we could, but some of the gold leaf bosses were missing. Again, my talented workmen redid all the gold leaf work. I missed that one. There's the front. There's the ceiling. You see all the gold bosses. We had to take that all down and redo it. Fortunately, we had a really good decorator, a guy called Jim Dorey, who previously had gilded that in my garage. That ship sails over the Farnham Town Hall buildings and is about this high. Anyway, he did that in about 1986, so it stood up well. The new altar, lectern and font were designed by Ptolemy and made in our blacksmith's workshop. That's this, and this. They're made out of recycled pews, and the bottoms are actually just pine. The work took the best part of 2 years, in which time the church was never shut, despite having every nook and cranny worked on. But it didn't stop there. The tower needed a new roof and a new ladder. The most terrifying experiences of my building career was climbing that ladder. And there's the old copper roof. You can see patches on it. I think the ladder was probably 30 foot. And there was a heavy copper hatch at the top which you had to push up and climb out. It wasn't for the faint-hearted. The west tower had a stone stair up to the ringing chamber and then on to the clock room, and then the timber ladders up to the bell frame and then the long ladder. The upper levels were home to most of Farnham pigeons and had a layer of thick guano. You can see the steps and you can imagine the guano there. And that's the old bell frame. That's the bell. That's high up in the tower. That's where the bells used to hang, and we lowered them down. And I don't know what. There's a flagpole in the corner there, and I don't know what that's for. Whether it was when the tower was, because the tower in the 1850s was shorter. I don't know if it's part of that or not. Someone will enlighten me, I hope. So, to get up to the tower, all the intermediate floors have got a hatch in them. There's the bottom one. Big enough to hoist a bell. We took those out, and we had a temporary electric hoist for materials. Chaps had to climb the 300 steps or so every time they wanted a wee. Well, I hope that's how they did it. The tower is 115 feet tall. We stripped off the copper roof, repaired the roof boards, and then before we could finish the repair, we had to hoist all the lead up, and then we repaired the roof, and then put the lead down. It's code 5 lead, which is very valuable, but it's obviously quite difficult to steal it from up there. The lead work was carried out by Nobby, my plumber, and Graham, his son, who had a full range of plumbing skills, including lead roofing. Plumber from Le Plomb, French for lead. So he did pipes and lead. It was all topped with a new flagpole, which we hoisted up over the castellations with a rope. Lower down, we made all the floors safe, filling in the holes and fixing previously loose boards. That's the top of the tower. And that's where the stair comes up. And if you get a chance to go up there, it's the most amazing views over Farnham. A great big roof. Then we built the skinniest wooden spiral stair you can imagine. I took my joinery foreman Alan on site and said, "Can you make a stair to fit that?" He didn't have any drawings. and he just scratched his head, and he did. And you can see it winding there behind the ancient clock. And you just see it in the back there, winding up. Amazing. It's very difficult to get a picture of it because it's so small. It's about that wide. I can just about get up it. There we are. And Alan's here. Stand up, Alan. Please. So you made it. Well done. So you can see the metal staircase that goes up to the roof, which was fabricated in Recklesham locally. Nearly there. The whole tower project cost £84,115. I can't believe how cheap it was. Unfortunately, the tower is now in need of structural repair, and currently the bells are only heard courtesy of electronic hammers rather than the bell ringers on ropes. Look out for the tower project, now launched, looking for a large sum to save the tower and making the building more accessible. The next project we were involved in was graves. There's William Cobbett. He needs weeding again. I can see there's a tree growing out of him. So we'll sort that out. So the graves were dilapidated and some were dangerous. We had limited funds, so I'm afraid this will be ongoing. But one story remains vivid. I came in one morning, and then this is the path to the vestry over here, and in the middle of the path there was a hole appeared. So I looked down the path, looked down the hole. It was raining, I think. I looked down the hole, and 6 foot down I could see a skeleton with his head. And my glasses fell off down the hole, and I'd like to think they landed on the skull like that. I probably, my memories. Anyway, so I had to get 2 sticks and hoist them out. Anyway, we mended the floor, we mended the path, and now they're resting in peace. One final involvement was in the connection with the refurbished organ, providing the screen, the backup for the fine organ craftsman. So this is over here. We didn't do the metal bits, but we did all the timber work. So the insides of a church organ are an amazing array of wooden and metal pipes, dust and cobwebs. The organ builder is a magician who conjures wonderful noises out of base materials. The one we had wore sandals and no socks. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time sitting and working in lovely old churches, and I feel I'm very privileged to have done so. One observation I like is that on plan, churches are cruciform, so they're like that. They go, and there's the 2 sides there. The chancel in some churches is slightly out of line with the nave, so it goes over to the left. Some say this depicts Jesus' head as he is on the cross. Whether that's true, I don't know. This is the case here, and we say the chancel weeps. So I was running FW German for 30 years, and we did some great jobs and had some great craftsmen working for us. Of all the jobs, this is the best. Thank you. So I'm nervous that some of you are architects and might ask me some architectural questions, but if anyone's got anything they'd like to know. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Brilliant. Thank you so very, very much for a really interesting and informative time talking about the development of this building and 1 or 2 others as well. We're hugely, hugely grateful. So the rest of the afternoon is for you to enjoy. If you're able to stay for a little while, you can enjoy walking around the rest of the building, inside and out. You can take a trip up the tower by signing up with Roy and the team. They'd be more than happy to get you up and down. And the pop-up cafe is available for refreshments, teas and coffees and yummy cake. So thank you so very much indeed for coming. It only remains for me to wish you a very lovely rest of the day and, when it comes to it, a safe journey home. Thank you.